Now that you know who you are interacting with during this presentation, what I'm going to actually do is the tiny URL that's linked. I also have it in pinned in the chat if you just want that direct link access. That is going to be our reference deck. So if at any time you need to go back and refresh your memory on something, this deck is a great deck to have. I actually will not be working out of this deck for this presentation. I'm going to live demo everything just as I would getting set up in my regular school year for my classroom as if I was getting started fresh on Schoology. So if at any time you have questions, please drop them in the chat, and Brian and EJ are here to support in there. And if there are other questions, they will escalate them up to me and I will pause and demo. But other than that, we're going to go ahead and kick off and get started. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to access Schoology. So like I said, we're going to be working out of Schoology. I'm going to be live demoing for you today. If you'd like to follow along in one of your own courses, please feel free to. If you would like to follow along within the course that I'm actually demoing, so you can see those assignments from a student perspective, you are also more than welcome to. If you're having any issues with access in the course, again, drop that in the chat, and Brian and EJ are here to help you out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to navigate to Schoology. And so the easiest way to get there is to go to schoology.bpsk12.org. And you're going to want to bookmark this because especially if you are a secondary teacher utilizing Schoology as your LMS, you will utilize it every day. So just a really nice thing to have bookmarked up in my bookmark bar. But once I'm logged in, I'm going to, again, if I go to the schoology.dpsk12.org address, that'll automatically tell it that you are with DPS. You need to log in through DPS, and it should trigger that DPS sign-on page that you go to. You'll have to engage in Duo possibly, and then you'll be entered into Schoology. If you go to an actual Schoology login page or Schoology.com and then try to enter your DPS credentials, it won't work. Same thing with students. They can't do it that way. They need to go to schoology.dpsk12.org, where you can access directly through your portal link. That includes you as a teacher, students through student portal, and parents through parent portal. So once you're in Schoology, you are going to come across a page that might look like this, and it also might have your updates. So regardless of what page you are defaulting to, this is what it should look like when you are in Schoology. And you know you're in the right place because you have that Denver Public Schools icon right in the top toolbar. You'll also notice that if you are late night YouTubing something for Schoology, most of their pages might not look exactly the same as ours. Again, we have that custom DPS toolbar. So that's how you know you're in the right place. The first thing that I'm going to do when I get into Schoology is I'm going to set up my basic profile and my notification settings, because the last thing I want is for me to get an email every time a student posts a comment and then I ask them to engage in a discussion board and I now have 382 messages in my inbox. That would be no bueno. So what I want to do is I'm going to go up to my name in the top toolbar, the furthest right corner, and I'm going to, sorry, I'm trying to click on this in the Meet. I'm going to click on my name there, and then you'll notice that you'll have your profile and then any of the schools that you're associated with, hopefully not as many as me, but then you should see this settings option here. You'll click into that and you'll notice that now I have the ability to customize my account settings. So I can change how the students see me. If I don't want them to see my actual first name, I want it to have a title displayed instead, I can do that. If I wanted to change my preferred first name to what they see, I can make it so that it replaces that. And then all of the other stuff, if I wanted to set an alternative email, I could. I don't recommend you mess with any of the stuff down here. And then again, you can't change your password because we have that single server sign-on. So parents will be able to change their account password, and that's how they can access via the app. But you and students will not be able to change your password through Schoology directly. The other thing that you're going to want to get done while you are setting up your basic account is this notifications box. And for each of these notifications, I have 3 options. I can either turn them all the way on, which means I get every single one for every single course. I can turn them all the way off, which means I get nothing, or I can select custom. When I select custom, I get to choose the courses that give me that information. So if I want to get a notification every time somebody comments on an update, an assignment, or a discussion, but I don't want that for maybe some of the courses I'm in for professional learning. I won't want to get all those, but I want to get all the ones that my students do. Or maybe I don't want to get all the ones that like my co-teacher has, but I want my students. You can set that to custom. And then you'll go through and select the courses that you would like to set that for. And again, hopefully you don't have as many active courses as I do, but if you do, it's in alphabetical order, so good luck. You'll select the ones that you want those notifications for, and then you're going to want to make sure that you scroll down and you hit Save Changes. You'll also notice that you have the option to send notifications via text message. I'm not going to tell you how to live your life. You live your best life here. If you prefer to get text message notifications about students submitting assignments, go forth. You may turn those on. You click this button and follow the instructions, and then you get the exact same drop down as email notifications. So once I've set up my profile, I can now start to access some of the other tools that I have available. So for our 101 session today, we are primarily going to stay within courses. The only thing that I do want to point out is when you are looking for your curriculum, or maybe you have a school-wide group that has a bunch of resources, those groups are where your resources live. There is a link in the presentation that has all of the join codes for those curriculum groups that are centrally provided. So if you want to join those, you literally just click on groups up here. You go to My Groups, and then you click Join a Group. It'll ask you for that access code. You just paste it in from that document, and then you're able to join that group and see everything that there is to see inside of there. So once I'm in one of those groups, let me see. Okay, so I'm in my 5th grade curriculum group here. You'll notice that I start with my updates. So this is going to be anytime your central specialists have information news for you, they'll post it in here typically. And then you'll also be able to see your resources by clicking on that resources tab on the side. And this is where your resources for that group live, and where you'll be able to find all of your curriculum materials. Sometimes schools utilize these for special clubs, groups, all of that good stuff. So just talk with your building admin, see how this is utilized in your school, but definitely will need it for access to those curricular pieces. Otherwise, we are going to go ahead and remain in courses. And this is where the bulk of your activity will probably be on a daily basis. So courses are where you operate out of for anything that you teach. It'll automatically be rostered according to what is in IC. Those classes are then automatically created, and then poof, they exist in Schoology. There's also, you'll notice that there's a blend. There are some classes that you teach and some classes that you are a student in because they are a professional learning session. If you're noticing that your courses, when you click on it, is a hot mess and not the courses that you are interacting with on a regular basis, you want all of your, the courses that you teach to be on the top, what you can do is after clicking this course button, I can click on My Courses. And then I can click this Reorder Courses button. And this will allow me to drag and drop the courses that I want within that first display when I click on that top courses tab. You'll notice anything that appears below this line won't be in that initial drop down. So these don't count for what I'll see. When I want to rearrange stuff, I just take it, grab it, drag it, and I put it in the place where it needs to be. I can also rearrange on this top row, so I don't need last year's key to you anymore. I can drag that out. And then I can readjust this year's to be at the very top. The thing to note about Schoology is that there are some pages where you are going to have to hit save changes, and then there are some pages where things are automatically saved. This is one of those times where things are automatically saved. There is no save button. That's your big clue to it's automatically saved. So you just click out this X button, and now you'll notice that when I click on my courses, all of those changes have been made. So when I'm ready to get into a course, and you can use courses that are going to be the courses that you use throughout the school year, you also have access to what's called a sandbox course. Every teacher in DPS has a sandbox course, and that is just your course where you can mess around in it. There are never going to be any students that are automatically enrolled in there. You can share that course out to other people. I know teams that plan where like, hey, this teacher's sandbox is used for this content and this teacher's sandbox is used for this content, and then they all share amongst each other. You can totally do that. You live your best life. Whatever organization makes sense for you and your team, go for it. But that sandbox is yours, and it is a place for you to play and share however you need to do so without needing to worry about, oh, is this going to mess up my students? Is it going to be confusing? Is it going to blow up my Schoology course? If I haven't done it, you won't. Don't worry. So when I get into my courses, again, when I click on that My Courses, all of the courses that I'm enrolled in are here. So if I can't find it in that top drop down and I know I'm enrolled in it, I can go to that main courses page and find it here. The other place it might be is archived. So after the school year, you're like, hey, I just spent all of this time putting all of these beautiful materials together into my Schoology course, and now you're telling me I have to start all over for a course next year? No, you do not. You can always access your courses that are outside the grading window. So as soon as like that June 1st window shuts, that is on most of the like year-long calendar courses, it'll automatically bump those courses into archived. So I can access that by just clicking on archived. And then this is every course that I've ever taken or been an admin on will now appear here, and I have full access to them just as I did before. So getting into then setting up your personal courses Schoology course. You'll go ahead and navigate to that. So I'm going to operate out of our generated link. Okay, so the first thing that I like to do when I set up my Schoology courses is I like to change my course profile picture. And that's for a couple of different reasons. One, it makes it really easy for me to distinguish the different courses that I have. So if you do not link your sections, it would be a good idea to make different profile pictures for each of your Schoology courses that say like period 1, period 2, period 3. Otherwise, you can make profile pictures within Canva, upload them. You can go to the internet and grab some pictures that you want to use for your profile picture, or you can utilize some of the stuff that Schoology already has built in if you just want that different pop of color for your students so that they can easily identify which course is yours, / you can easily identify which courses that you need to be engaging with. Because as you can probably already see, it is really confusing when you open that up and you just have a bunch of the same blue boxes at the top that have like your actual course name, and you're like, oh, I don't know which section that is because it doesn't actually match any of my periods. That is where your use of profile pictures is going to be super impactful. So when I make my profile pictures, I literally just pop into Canva. We have Canva for Ed as a district. That means we get all of the premium features of Canva for free. I highly recommend that you utilize Canva if you have not done so already. But when I make my course profile images, I just go in here to create a design. I always use a logo because that tends to be the easiest for me. If you're ever playing around in this and you find the magic resolution that Schoology likes for its profile pictures, please let me know because I've been on the hunt for it. But typically just default to my logo size. And then from here, I can either search for different templates if I want some starting points, or I could just add in a text box. I make that as pretty as I want to make it, and I spend as much time as I want to spend on it. And then when it is ready to go, let me go a little bit smaller. And then when it's ready to go, I just hit the share button. I'm going to download it as a PNG. That's going to download for me. And then once I'm back in Schoology, I just click on this edit picture. That'll pop up anytime I'm hovering over that course profile image. And then I can select from one of Schoology's pre-generated images, or I can attach a file. And then I'm just going to attach that Schoology image that I just made. And now there's my profile picture. Again, it helps me to distinguish between my classes, and it also helps students distinguish between the 7, 8, 10 courses that they are navigating through in a semester. A note with linking courses. So you noticed that I said, hey, if you don't link your courses a couple of steps ago, I personally recommend always linking your courses. It makes it so that I only have to post materials once, and then it will go to all of the sections that are linked within there. It just saves me time from having to post materials. I still have those sections separated, but there are also some buildings where the way that your schedule is created in IC doesn't allow for you to link sections effectively. So if you're wondering if linking sections is for you, either check out that slide in the reference deck or just talk to your digital coach and see if that's something that you would be interested in. Only link your sections before you have populated material or put in grades, because when you link those sections, what it does is it'll wipe out and give you a fresh start with the sections that you've linked together. So when I have teachers who come to me and they try to link their sections mid-semester, what'll happen is they lose all of those grades, because it's like essentially thinking that you are creating a new section, fresh slate, and it won't automatically transfer those grades over. Now, it's not the end of the world. We can get those grades back typically in terms of there's a report that's downloaded. However, those no longer attach to the actual assignment. So if I'd given assessments or assignments and that was attached to actual student work and I wanted to keep that attached student work to the grade, I can't do that when I link or unlink my sections. It'll break that connection. So that's why we only want to do this at the beginning of the term and not after we've already assigned material.
Okay.
Yes.
It's worth mentioning too that they really shouldn't work in the classes until their IC administrator says, I'm done creating. So they don't create orphan.
I think that that's largely being taken care of. We haven't seen as many issues with that lately, but if the safest precaution that you could take is just reach out to someone and say like, hey, are my sections done? Like, are they created the way that they need to be? Because sometimes what we run into is sections get created really early in the year and then something happens, they need to be changed. And then so there's a disconnect that happens when those are changed. It is happening a lot less frequently than it used to, just because we're on the same page with a lot of our schedulers now. But if you're seeing any issues with like your school's in pass back and it's not passing back your grades appropriately, or you're seeing two different things, definitely reach out to your Google coach and we will problem solve with you. So in my course, you'll see a blank course here. Mine already has a couple of folders just for some housekeeping things. But when I get in, I've changed my profile picture. I know where I'm going. I know the content that I'm working on now. Next step, before I add any materials or assignments, is I want to set up my grade book. And there's a big caveat here, because every school has different grade policies that are school-wide and different expectations of how that grade book setup looks like. So please, please, please reach out to your building admin teams so that they can tell you what those standard school-wide expectations are. I'm just going to run through the basics of like what these buttons are and what they do. I am not going to tell you how to weight your categories. Again, talk to your admin or talk to whoever your evaluator is, just to make sure that there are no like big school-wide things that like, oop, everybody has to follow into this norm. But when I go to set up my grade book, I'm going to go into this grade setup tab that's on my side left, my left side toolbar. Under the materials tab. So I have materials, update gradebook, and then grade setup. I'm going to click on grade setup. And it'll take me to a page that looks something like this. This grading period and final weights button you should never need to touch, because all of that is taken from IC. And that, again, it's what uses to communicate back and forth between IC and Schoology if your school has opted into passback. So be on the safe side, don't touch your grading periods or the weights associated with them, because they need to line up with the stuff that's in IC. Your final grade settings, again, is going to be determined on the school that you're with. And honestly, if you have, if you're a passback school or not. So there are some schools that have custom scales that are pushed out. Again, ask your admin. And then if you would like to round up your final grades, you can click this button. So if you would like that student who got an 89.7 to have that bumped up to an A-, that's what that does. These are all override columns for within your grade book that you can utilize. You can also always hover on this question mark here, and that'll explain to you exactly what this button does. Some of the more common ones would be the course override column. So that'll give me a separate column that I can put in a totally separate grade that overrides the rest of the assignments in that column. That would typically be used for, I had a student who missed half the semester and now needs to engage in alternative assignments instead of just like doing the regular coursework that I had all of my other students do. Because I'm giving them those alternative assessments, I'm having them on a different grading, whatever. That's when I would use a grade overall. Typically people don't utilize them, even though that's there. It's nice to have there. The big thing that's new that you might have a step up on from more experienced Schoology users is this exemption code setting. So this is new as of last year. And what it does is if you have this selected, it makes it so that when you click that missing assignment flag that I'll talk about, it will calculate as if you left the cell blank. Instead of what the default is, if you don't have that clicked, is it will set to 0. The problem with that is that a lot of schools are on a no zero policy. So you have a grade floor of anywhere from 45 to 55%. And so using that missing flag then goes against those school policies. It's really hard to keep up with. But using the flag is convenient and a nice way of communication. So if you still want to utilize that flag, but you don't want that 0 weight, you can use this. My caution with that is that if you utilize this and then those missings go to zeros, that will significantly impact a student's grade most time. And so you'll be answering a lot of correspondence about like, why did my grade drop from a 82 to a 56? Well, it's because all of those missing assignments now count towards your grade, even though I put the floor on them. So just a conversation piece. And then for these visibility settings, these are typically not utilized. Again, special cases. I have some schools that are on a school-wide thing of they hide the overall student grades because that's what they have set as their school policies. Ask your admin. All of that stuff is really school dependent and admin specific. The thing that I see the most flexibility with is categories. And that is just different buckets that you can dump these assignments into. For you to use assignments or assessments or anything else that's going to have any grading component, you're going to have at least one grading category. So if you don't know what those levels are, I recommend that you not set this up in your actual IC tied classes, but rather mess around in your sandbox, or just set up one category to get started with. I saw a hand up. If you want to hop off, I'm 100% okay to answer question.
Hi, I was just wondering if you could clarify, are you saying for the like disabling missing assignments to go automatically to 0, would that for any reason like automatically go off, or are you talking about when it goes into IC?
So
like the correspondence on the back end.
Correct. What this button does is if I click it, it's going to make it so that the missing assignment exemption doesn't count towards the grade. It is the exact same thing as leaving it blank, which means it doesn't calculate into that overall grade. If I have it unchecked, that's the standard setting. And what that means is that my missing flag, whenever I put a missing flag on an assignment, it's going to default that grade calculation to 0. What does that mean for pass back? Well, all that is passed back, if you are a school that engages in that, is the overall grade. So it's not taking that like specific assignment level material and passing that back. What it is it's just like taking that overall grade. So yes, it does have impact, but like not in the way where we're talking about flags having different weight in different systems, because it's not at that assignment level.
Awesome, thank you.
Of course. So once I have my gradebook set up, again, I've checked with my admin, all of that stuff. I am ready to start adding in some assignments. So I'm just going to add 2 categories that I typically see a lot, especially in my secondary schools, and I'm just going to have a process and a product. You can mess with these functionalities later on, but they just calculate the score differently. I have a whole work done of like what the difference between total points versus percentage is in that reference deck if you want to check it out and see what's going to work out best for you. But again, it really depends on your school preferences and or any like school-wide policies that you might have, and then like personal preference on like, do you utilize rubrics more than point values, or do you specifically like double weight things? So you have a category that's worth 50%, but in there I'm double weighting with like differing point values. It all depends. Check out that resource or reach out to your digital coach if you want to talk through some of those points. And then the other thing that I see a lot of when I am having to problem solve or troubleshoot gradebook calculation issues is that teachers will have this drop lowest set. That is literally telling the gradebook to drop the lowest however many numbers you put in there. So if I have drop 3, it would be telling me, hey, the 3 lowest assignments don't count towards that grade anymore. So typically this is set to 0. I do have a couple of teachers who utilize it. With a lot of our schools moving to grading for equity practices, I don't see it used as often, but it is there for you, and typically why your gradebook is not calculating the way you think it should be. So once I have at least 2 categories in there, I can weight them. And so to do that, I'm just going to go over here to weight categories. And then again, following whatever my school-wide expectation is, or whatever feels great in my heart, depending on where you're at, I can go and change these weights. It'll always default these weights to like be 100. And if you keep them like that and you continue to add on categories, it'll automatically do the percentage conversion for you if you want everything to be at an equal weight. If, though, you would like to differentiate weights, so maybe I want my process, that's the learning, like the content absorption process of my class, maybe I want that to be worth 20, and then that product or my demonstration of learning, standard mastery, all of the above, I'm going to weight that at 80. And so now when I have an assignment as a product assignment, that will always hold more weight than my process category. Regardless of if I make a process assignment 10 point or 100 points here, and then a product assignment 10 points, it's not going to matter because it's going to take that overall score from whatever's in that category and make it to be whatever weight you have it set for. So that's how I set up my categories. And then I'm going to want to make sure, this is one of my pages where I have to make sure that I scroll down and hit save changes. I have worked with so many people who spend all of this time setting up their grade book and making it so beautiful, and then they don't hit save changes and none of it saves. And it's tragic. So just make sure that you're going down and you're hitting save changes. And now I'm ready to start adding in some materials to my class. So I'm going to go over to my materials little icon. Also, just a note, you'll notice that there are like 900 different ways to get places within Schoology. I'm just going to model like my normal click path, knowing that there are other ways to get places typically, and you'll find them in whatever like flow works out best for you. Some people like to use breadcrumbs a lot. Some people like to use the back arrow key. You find your own groove. But on the materials page, this is where I can add materials. And so for 101, you'll notice that when I open that drop down, I have so many things available to me. On my right-hand side is where I'm going to have all of my district apps that have already been automatically pushed out to my account. And then on the left-hand side, I have my Schoology embedded tools. So the ones that we're really going to focus on in 101 is folder, assignment, and file link external tool. All of these other ones have value. You can utilize them. I don't recommend, I usually don't cover them when I'm starting off with Schoology because Schoology itself is already a huge platform. There's a lot to learn. This is more just like, how do I hit the ground running? So if I want to add a link or a stagnant file, something like my syllabus or an instructional video. I used to have a whole folder just of course information and resources. My syllabus was in there. Screencast videos on how to submit assignments. Common questions that my students would have, I would put in this folder so that they always have access to it, regardless of where they're working on their assignments from, even if I'm not in the room. So to do that, I'm just going to click on Add File, Link, External Tool. I'm going to select the type of thing that I am trying to add. So if I have my syllabus and it's a PDF, I can upload that straight from my computer. However, if I'm working with a document that is a living document and is constantly being updated or revised or changed, I'm probably going to want to add that as a link to this, the Google Doc as a view-only link. That way, as I make changes in the Google Doc, I don't have to pull it off of Schoology and re-upload it whenever there are revisions made. It'll automatically be live if I use that Google link. So I just click on that link here, and then it'll ask me to paste in my link and give it a title. So I'm going to go ahead and link in our Schoology deck. So I gave it a title there. And now what I want to make sure is I typically like to keep this display in Schoology button off so that it is grayed out. What that is going to do is it's going to force my links to open in a new tab. And the reason I like to do this is because, especially if I'm using any sort of like higher density file, video file, sometimes they just like break within Schoology because it is trying to operate within another platform. So if you're seeing like an error message come up when it's posted in Schoology like that, or they can't access it, try clicking the display in a new window button. And again, that means that this icon, this paper icon, will be grayed out, and that'll force it to open in a new tab. This green button means that it is published. When something is published, it is viewable by students in the class. When it is unpublished, only admin of the class can see it. And so those are things like, I'm working on an assessment that I'm creating as a check for understanding, but I don't want to open it up and have them start working in it until I'm 100% done with it. And I don't want to build it in my school or in my sandbox course because I just want to do it right here in the class. You can unpublish it so that students don't have access to it before you're done working on it. But if you use the unpublish button, make sure that once you have given the assignment, you are not unpublishing those assignments ever again, because it messes up your gradebook like nobody's business, and it hides things from the student view that it does not hide from your view, and it's a hot mess. So once an assignment has been opened, just don't unpublish it. You can drag it to a new folder. I used to have a folder that was called past units that I would just drag all of my old unit folders to. That way it kept my top page clutter free, but also wasn't running into the unpublishing of assignments. Long story short, what it does is it unpublishes the assignment completely from the student view, including their gradebook perspective, removing the grade from their view, not from your view. So what they're seeing on their end is a different grade than what you see on your teacher gradebook. And the grade that is then passed back to IC is that grade that the student is seeing. So 9 times out of 10, when I have a teacher reach out and say, hey, my student is seeing this in IC, but that is not the grade that I have for them in Schoology, it is because of unpublished assignments. So unpublishing is great for before we've started that, not so great for after we have already completed it. So I'm going to add this link. And now when I click on this, just a learning curve, it will typically give me a redirect notice. And some people will take that as like, oh, it gave me an error message and it didn't work. It will redirect you within 5 seconds. And it'll say, hey, it's trying to redirect you to this link. Do you want to do that? We're going to give you 5 seconds. Otherwise, we're just going to move on without you. But that's what that's doing. Nothing's broken. It's just letting you know, hey, this is we're opening up a new tab for you. So that's great for resources, materials that are references for students. But when we want to start adding assignments that students can interact with on the platform, we want to build that assignment out. So I'm going to go to add materials. I'm going to add an assignment. And this is my assignment creation toolbar. So the thing I have to do is I first have to give it a name. And then this description box is typically where I'll put in my instructions for the assignment. Hey, we're going to do X, Y, Z. And it is the same instructions I've typically just copy pasted from my worksheet. Just having it in multiple places can be really helpful. And parents have access to their students' assignments from within Schoology. They don't have access to anybody else's assignments, just their own kids' work. But they'll be able to see those descriptions. So the more instructions that you provide on these assignments, the easier it is for students to get support outside of the classroom on them or work on them asynchronously if needed. So I'll put in that description. And if I have things that are references, so like, hey, I made this screencast video that walks you through this project, or here's an exemplar that you can utilize as you're working on this, you can use this link feature and it'll attach it to the assignment, but it won't generate a new copy for anybody. Again, those are just like reference materials, anything that you want as view only, or again, is stagnant, you can use this link button or you can upload as a file to the assignment within the description. Now, if I want for every student to have their own copy and all of the sharing adjusted permissions to be adjusted, just like I would in Google Classroom, what I'm going to use is this Google Drive assignments button. And so I'm going to have my digital worksheet or whatever I'm having them work on pre-created in my Drive. So again, that's either I have the questions already like pre-typed out with all of the accompanying resources, or if I'm having my students write an essay from scratch, sometimes I'll just like have a blank doc that says essay on the title. And that's what I can attach to this assignment so that all of my essays are in the same place. I can easily have access to an entire class's worth of essay, and I can watch them work on it live as they are work. It keeps all of the functionality of Google Docs while allowing me to see it directly within Schoology. So I can upload things that can be force copied are sheets, slides, and docs. So I'm going to find my sample worksheet. And the way that I find is most simple for me to find assignments in this assignment builder space is just to search for the title of my document. So we're going to use this one here. I can also check to make sure it's the right one by clicking this view link. It'll pop up in a separate tab just to make sure that like this is the one you want to share. And then I'm going to select it. When it is selected in blue and it just stays there regardless of where I move my mouse, I know that it is actually selected, and I can click attach, and that's going to force a copy for each of my students, adjust the sharing permissions. And then what it also does is if I set a due date on this assignment, it's going to tell the student in the student Schoology page, it has a list of upcoming assignments for them of like, hey, know that in all of your classes that you're associated with on Schoology, you have these coming up. So one, it's really helpful for them in terms of time management to see like what all of their teachers have assigned. And two, what it'll also do is after the due date, it'll automatically lock the assignment on the student's end for editing. So once that due date hits, students go to like commenting ability instead of having direct edit access unless I kick their document back to them. So that avoids the whole like, hey, I signed this essay, a student turns in a blank copy before the deadline hits, and then is going to do things with it later that I don't want them to do because it is past the deadline. It automatically locks, so they can't do that. But if it's past the deadline and I'm like, hey, I need you to make some revisions on this and try again, I can always unsubmit a document, kick it back to them. But that due date, after it passes, it'll automatically, again, lock that assignment for any assignments that have been submitted. So I can put on, I want this due on the 16th. This is where I can adjust the point value if I would like to. And then it's always going to make me add it to a category. So I have the categories that I've created, and then I'll also always have a ungraded grading category. That ungraded grading category, it's not going to show up in your grade book because it is ungraded. So it'll keep the functionality of the assignment. Maybe I just like want students to do a reflection assignment and I want that forced copy for all of them, but I'm not actually grading it. I can put that in ungraded. Now, if I'm just collecting something, so these are things like, hey, I want to keep track of everyone who's turned in a field trip permission slip or a permission slip to watch that movie in my class, but there's not like a level of grade that I would assign to that. Like you can't get a 7 for turning in a permission slip. Like it's either all or nothing. I can go to this collected button here and I can select that. And what that does is it just takes off the ability for me to score that assignment. And it's more of a heads up for me like, hey, these are the people you have this from. These are the people that you do not have this from. So that's an option. But if it is marked as collected, you will not be able to score it. Throws the people off sometimes. And then your scale rubric down here. So if your school uses a custom grade scale for assignments, that's going to give them verbiage instead of letter grades, you'll adjust that here in the category, in the scale rubric. And then you'll also have the ability to not only create a rubric from scratch, but any rubric that you have pre-created or used before will also show up in this list. So I could just go through, add my rubric in, and then once I add a rubric, even if I add it from an assignment like this, it's going to save for me within my gradebook setup. I can always access those through the rubric tab, any rubrics that I create. So for this one, I'm just going to go ahead and put it as numeric. This green little button here tells me that it's published to students. And so then I can go ahead and create it. Oops, I didn't actually put a category on this. And then that is going to create my assignment. So now when I go in, because it has that Google attachment, this is the page I go to. And so it is going to tell me, here is all the students that I have who are enrolled in my class. And when a student hasn't opened the assignment yet, it'll tell me that that student has not yet opened the assignment, which means that it has not yet generated a copy for them. This is so handy for me to have, because if I'm having my students utilize Schoology during the day, it is very easy for me to quickly go through 15 minutes into the lesson and say, hey, buddy, why have we not even opened the document yet? Let me help you out. Let me give you a little bit more support here to get started. Because a lot of the times what I would find is my kids just were confused and didn't know where to go, and so would just sit there and look at a computer with nothing on it. But now I can catch them before we get into it. Like we're no longer an hour into the lesson before I'm like, you haven't done anything. Cool. This is a really good strategy for me to use. And I don't have to blast them out in front of the entire class. It's on my computer. I can go to Jason and say, hey, Jason, are you having an issue opening this assignment? And it's that accountability piece. They know that I can see that they are not on the assignment yet. When a student has opened the assignment, what I will see is perfect. Thank you, Brian. It's going to think about it for a hot second.
That was a little slow.
We're gonna let it load for a second, but full transparency, I've been running meets on my computer all day, so my computer is near death. It's on its last leg and struggling. But typically, as soon as they open these up, you'll see the file there. Brian, are you the sample?
That's a sample assignment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I opened that and created my document name, but it was very slow for me.
Okay, well, we'll check that out a little bit later as soon as my computer catches up. Just kidding. You know, cool. My computer's flipping out right now, so it's not having this, but you'll see that whole document, and it is literally a Google Doc that is embedded within the page. So you can see, again, in real time, students working on it and writing, doing all that stuff, and you have full Google functionality. So I used to go through and do quick checks for understanding directly through Schoology, and I would be able to highlight certain pieces in the instruction that they needed to go back to, or use comments, use suggestion mode if I was getting feedback on grammar or flow or anything. So you still have all of those features fully available to you to utilize with these assignments. If you don't add that Google functionality assignment, your students will have 3 different options for how they upload. So this one does not have any attachments, and you'll notice that this is the page I come to here. When a student comes, which you can see the student view right now, you have a submit assignment button, and then you will have 3 options. You can either create, upload, or add from your resources block. So when you create it, that means that you are going to type it right in there. You're gonna put in your response. Typically what I see is add your link here. And so then students will just paste a link into the upload field, and that's how they share their document. For the upload, again, that's an upload. So these are great for screen grabs, PDFs, anything that your students have created. Maybe I asked my kids to do an infographic in Canva, and now I want them to upload that. That's not going to be in Google. So they're just going to upload it straight from their computer. They can do it on this assignment without that Google functionality. And then lastly, they can always connect their Google Drive resource app. And so they can pull files directly from their drive and plop it onto an assignment. That's really great if you have students working from multiple templates sometimes, or like you could do this presentation in Canva or in Google Slides. And so you have a variety of what people are using and the platform that people are using. You can have them submit those links via a plain assignment like this, or upload it directly from their resources.
Good. We want there for you.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So
For
I'm gonna
assignment
go
2, what does that mean? For sample 2.
perfect. So I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go here to EJ's. And so if I am looking, as my students submit things, you'll see that I have them here. And it'll always tell me that, like, if I haven't clicked on it yet, this needs grading button it'll keep me in there. So even if I go away to a course and now I navigate back, because I haven't clicked on EJ's assignment, it still needs grading. So I'll be able to click on that here. This is what he uploaded to me. Beautiful. Awesome. I can add a comment directly from here if I wanted to. And I can also grade it directly from this window. So as I open up the things that my students have submitted, I can enter in that grade, and I can also leave a gradebook comment. So if the difference between this gradebook comment and the assignment is that if I leave a comment on the assignment at the assignment level, it's typically feedback that I want them to implement, or like, hey, resubmit this. I don't have access to your link, but things like that. That are going to live on the assignment itself, that can be a comment that you post here. Your gradebook comment is going to show up in there as a line within the gradebook, and is available for them to see as well as their parents to see. Unless you don't have this show to student button selected, then it would just be a personal note for you. So if I were to leave a gradebook comment that I wasn't going to show to a student, that would be something like follow up on concerns about plagiarism, if I wanted to check something else out, or like compare this student and this student's responses, blah, blah, blah. Those are like personal notes for me that I don't want to show to the students. I just don't have to click that button. Typically, I want to show my gradebook comments to students and families, elaborate on why they got the score they did. I can do this all directly from the assignment here. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and put that in. EJ, great job.
Ooh, I got an 8.
And so now it should, unless my computer is exploding, save that grade. Brian, I'm going to check yours one more time. Nope, okay. So my computer is not having it today. But those are the two different types of assignments you can utilize that I will go over in 101. There are different ways that you can use tools, like the external tools to add assignments that have different functionalities. Again, I could spend an entire session on each single one of those tools and the integration with Schoology. So for us getting started, learning how to just build sample assignments like built in with Google functionality and not, that's going to be a like good stepping stone. Once you're like, I got this in the bag, we can start talking about different assignment types. So now you have assignments in there, you got the materials going, you're ready to go, you're ready to get into your grade book. So I click into my grade book here, and if I make an assignment from that materials page and it's not ungraded, it will pop into my grade book automatically. So I don't have to do anything to add those here. And directly from my grade book, if I click on the assignment, it'll open up a new tab and take me directly to that assignment. So then I can go peruse, do what I need to do. It's the exact same thing for the students. So if a student sees that they have a missing flag on something, they can just click on that assignment from the gradebook and it'll take them directly to the assignment. Another reason why having the description part filled out on these assignments can be really helpful and impactful, because then that student doesn't have to wait for you to respond to their email about how do I complete this assignment that is marked missing. They can just read the instructions and it's all right there. Will they read the instructions is another question, but at least they're there for them. So I'll just go back over here into my grade book. When I'm ready to grade assignments, there's a couple of different things that I can do. I can just click into a cell here and put in a score. Notice that like it's going through and saving all of my changes automatically. So within the grade book, there's no save changes button on this page. That being said, if you have some internet connectivity issues or you're typing things in and then you're noticing that nothing's turning green over here, that means that your overall grade isn't updating and something isn't saving in your grade book. Do not finish grading everything because it's not saving right. So if you're noticing that's happening, stop, refresh your page, and wait for it to notice that you are putting in input. So if these aren't changing, it's not recognizing that you are putting stuff in. It'll also typically give you a little message at the bottom that says unable to save. Or it'll give you like a little access code issue. It tries to make it known when it's not saving, but I have run into some instances where teachers went through, their connectivity dropped. They continued putting in grades, and then when they like clicked enter, they lost everything because the page refreshed to nothing. So it's frustrating. I would love for you to avoid it. If these numbers aren't turning green, stop doing what you're doing. That is one way you can do it. You can also utilize these flags. So you'll notice that when I hover over the cell, I get this little flag. I can click on that, and this gives me all of the different exemptions that I can use for this assignment. Most of these will default to the score not impacting the grade, or it's just a flag and I can submit a score on top of it. So like when I have this absent flag, oh, they fixed it. So if I'm marking like, hey, this student, Stephen here, he was absent this day. That's a note to me. One, he hasn't turned in this assignment and I'm not going to penalize him for not turning in that assignment. I could leave that checked like that and it could just tell me that was a discussion day. Stephen wasn't here that day to discuss, so I'm not going to hold that against. Great. I'm so sorry, Stephen. But as soon as I go in and like, cool, maybe this was an assignment and I'm saying, hey, Stephen was absent this day and that is why I'm not going to dock any points for it being late, whatever my grading practices are. It's note to me to make sure that like he's still got some time to work on it. But then Stephen turned in his assignment and it was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. So I gave 100%. And when I put in that score, it cleared my exemption. So now it's calculating into his final score. One of the things I really like about using the flags is that I can use the fill all feature, and that can help with some mass grading, especially if I'm trying to make it known that like, hey, a lot of my kids did not turn in the parent permission slip that they needed, or they didn't turn in the homework assignment from last night. I only had 2 kids who did it. Instead of having to go through and individually flag every student, what I can do is I can go up here on the assignment level before I hit a student here. And in these 3 dots next to the score, I can mark all of my empty cells as these exemptions. So when I do that, any empty cell in this column will then be marked with whatever exemption I have. Also really great if you're assigning like extra credit opportunities that you want. I could make this 0 points, and then for any student who didn't complete it, I could just mark that excused, and then that way I don't have any, I don't have a ton of empty boxes that are floating around my grade book, making it confusing of what I need to grade and what I don't. In order to remove an exemption, I can either put in a score, or if like this, it won't let me put in a score here. It's not letting me type. I can just click the flag itself and then click a whatever exemption flagged, and then it removes it. The thing that I don't like about using the mark empty cells as is there's no way to undo it. So if I accidentally mark all of my empty cells as missing, but I really wanted to mark them as late, I have to go through and unflag every single one individually, which is no bueno. So just be careful when you're using that. The other thing is the set all grades. If I know, because I go through and I actively monitor my class, that's how I used to teach. So I would have all of my grades already done. If I know that like, hey, 90% of my students got 100% on today's assignment, I can go ahead and set all of those grades. Good, set all grades. Now overrides. Look, we're learning new things. Schoology is listening to us. They're making product updates. We love this. So you can now use set all if you would like to clear those flags. That's beautiful. But I can also then go in and the set all, when I use a numeric value like that, I can go in and easily change, except for this student got an 80 and this student got an 80. And then those will save and be updated. But again, I don't have to go through and individually put in all of those scores. Also, if I have a rubric attached, what it'll do is it'll actually, instead of giving me this blank space, it'll give me that rubric icon. I can then pull up the rubric directly from the assignment or from my grade book and select the rows in the rubric that match that assignment. So if I was wanting to add just a column in my grade book, but I don't want to spawn that like assignment template, because maybe I'm putting in an assessment from Illuminate that they are taking on Illuminate and I want them to take on Illuminate. So I don't need that extra assignment created. What I can do is I can add a grade column. So up here, I can just go to this little plus sign and I can add a grade column. You'll also notice that I can add materials directly from my grade book. So all of these materials have the ability to be graded, and so I can add them directly from here. I'm going to add a grade column. I'm going to give this a name. I still have to put it into a category. And then I create that, and you'll notice now that that grade column, the text is in black and it is not hyperlinked because it wouldn't hyperlink to anything. It's not generating anything. So this is just for scores for you to put in. Whereas when it's blue, it'll actually take me to the assignment as soon as I click on it. Last thing I wanted to hit on in Gradebook are these view features. So as your semester extends, you're going to have a lot of assignments that you're trying to filter through. You can use these view filters to get to the assignments that you're looking for. So you can either filter all of the materials, or you can look at certain categories that you have. So maybe I just want to see all of the grades that are product grades. So far, I don't have any product grades. So that's what it's going to show me. I can also filter by due date. So this is how it is lining things up here. I can choose either, if I use due dates in my class, I can choose to sort it by due date, or I can choose to sort it by date of creation. Depending on how you go about creating your materials is what you would select for that. That's 100% personal preference. And then also using this view tab will highlight specific cells. So if I have Brian here did not turn in his assignment, it is missing. But when I have a full grade book full of grades, sometimes this can get lost and be tricky to find. So I can go to my view filter and I can select this marked missing. And what it's going to do is it's going to highlight all of the cells that meet that criteria. This We'll also tell you on the side how many assignments meet that criteria. The one I use the most as a classroom teacher, honestly, was this marked missing with submission. So that would be anytime I flagged an assignment as missing, that then communicated to Brian that I do not have his assignment. Maybe he just clicked or forgot to click submit. So then he goes in, submits the assignment. If it is an assignment that is within Schoology and they submit it, you'll get a little piece of paper icon that's up here. They'll tell you that that the student submitted it. So if you have it flagged as missing, but you have this little paper icon, that'll tell you that, hey, that student just turned something in, and so you should review it. Also, just keeping track of things. So if I have a student who is constantly making revisions on something, and I want to be able to go back and see all of the different times that grade has been updated, I can go in and I can track the revisions. And you can see the timestamps of when those grades were put in. This is also a really great tool. If you happen to leave your Chromebook or your teacher device open and you notice that a kid just went from a 55% to 100%, whoa, I did not realize that I received any assignments from them, you can go in and check to see when those timestamps are, and you can even revert to previous grades that were posted. So I'm sorry I just made your head explode with all of this great Schoology knowledge. This is the basics of getting started. So this is honestly like, those are the things that you need to know to be able to go into next week, get students started on using Schoology. This isn't where it stops though. So when you get comfortable building up these skills, there are even more things that you can integrate in with Schoology that will just give your lessons up on engagement or accessibility. So many things that you can do within this platform. It's very robust. You always are learning it. And then as soon as you learn it, they update it. But that's what we're here for, is to come and support you through your learning journey with Schoology and other EdTech products. With our last 7 minutes, I am more than happy to just live demo any questions that you might have that are remaining. If you want to take this time to review some of the resources that are in the resource deck, you can feel free to. But otherwise, I'm just going to be here to answer questions in live demo. I should give you the sign-in survey then, because that would be helpful. I'm linking that in the chat. It's very helpful for me if you take the survey completion course when you are ready to, directly from within Schoology, as that will automatically push your completion for this course. If you can't access the survey from using that link, we still very much want your feedback. So our whole team looks at these feedback results. We analyze them and we use them as we are revising our future presentations. So I know that I'm going to give this Schoology presentation every year, and I'm going to give it like 5 more times at school-specific sites. Let me know if there's things that you wish were included, other things like that. We deeply appreciate your feedback and you taking the time to do that. But again, if you have any lingering questions, you want me to demo anything, I will stay on. But otherwise, thank you so much for spending your Tuesday afternoon, week 1 back, learning about Schoology. We're here for you as a means of support, but happy school year, ready to get started. Good luck.